Greetings, Mark Guerringue here, publisher of The Sun. This is our second installment with Rob Barsamian at Sellers Green. And I want to say people can watch us on ConwayDailySun.com and on Valley Vision. We'll encourage Bill Edmonds to pick it up and so you can see Rob twice. All right, so we talked about episode 1 was about retail and stores and all that kind of stuff. Now let's talk about real estate. All right, Rob, we have two Robs here. Rob, the producer, could you throw up a slide? All right, so you've got 3 developments going on right now, right?
We do.
And this one's by the up on Barnes Road extension, and what old timers would know is to the right of Home Depot, and it's the where the old racket club was. This is 40 years ago, whatever it was, and so. If you could explain it, and I do know the one concern the planning board had was to the right of this thing, right? The north-south road is to the right.
Correct.
And they were concerned about seeing it from north-south road, and they wanted you to build a berm or something.
I think that's
so
right.
If you could explain, go ahead.
So it's a combination of condominium and then one building that's apartments. And so in order to get some of the density up, that was one of the requirements we needed to do. Is with the condominium project, we had to build some apartments also. So there are 10 apartments that go along with the overall development.
So what do you explain that? What do you mean to get the density up?
So there's I think in the ZBA under there's a special provision that if you add apartments, long-term rental apartments, you can increase your density a little bit.
Okay.
And so the requirement is that you have to have apartments along with the development.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons why we went that way is because everyone was saying, look, can you build some apartments? Can you build some apartments? Right. And we looked at all the land that we had, and we said, okay, I think we can do this here. And so we've been in front of the board for a long time on this, because there was a couple planner shifts.
Yeah.
And so they asked us to pause and stop and wait. Right. And then the master plan went on and they couldn't fit us in. So we've been going at this almost for 2 years, I think.
Right.
So this has been a long one for us. It's unusual because obviously you want to kind of get going, kind of miss the market a little bit.
You think the market has peaked?
I think it's changed, right? I think it's changed a little bit. So I don't think we missed the market. I think the market is still here, but it's definitely, and I don't mean the market, with interest rates kind of on the on the rise. That changes everything, even a point or two for that person that wants the second home, or the person that's looking to sell their home, and kind of it changes like how they're thinking or what they can borrow at. So you have to deal with that. We don't have that many units, so I don't think that's an issue. I think one of the beauties of this project, was that 2 things, like 1 + 1 = 3 when you're talking about new housing, right? It's not always going to be affordable housing, or it's not always going to be housing that is rental housing, right? So, but just more housing, kind of switches the game a little bit, because some people will move out of what they have. There'll be more stuff available on other things. People will argue, well, these are high-end condominiums, right? And that's true, they are, but there's a need for that. Yeah. We've gotten, more calls on this development from people that live locally that want to downsize and walk to all the things that are offered in that area. The market, the shopping, the restaurants.
And how many units are in there again?
In this one, I think it's 30 residential and 10 apartments.
Okay. And
something like that, 30
and I know with the Continuum, and I'm interrupting here and I'm sorry, but across the street, the Continuum, the big project there.
Yes.
And they're putting in some over 55 cottages, they're calling them. And they're kind of like very nice duplexes, but they're like $700,000. And so, which surprised me.
Where are those again exactly?
Well, they're across from Walmart.
At the entrance to the high school, kind of?
Yeah, well, the entrance to on the corner is where the bank is going to go.
Yeah.
And then if you go east,
a little
I guess.
East, okay, got it. I know, I got it.
But things are just expensive. So I guess my question is, like, what's going to be the price range of those condos? Because the ones down here in Cranmore, by the brook, going over to Cranmore, they're like $1-something million. So what are these going to be?
Well, they're going to be market rate, whatever the size, but they're going to be a little bit more on the smaller size, I think. And so, they haven't really established a price for them. So I think, they'll be in whatever they can sell for. That's the range they're going to be in.
For like $1 million.
I think it's probably going to be a little less than that. That's my guess. But that would be my guess.
Okay, and the rentals is not afford. And I know every time you bring something up at the planning board, it's like, You know, if there's every developer's a nail and they're the hammer, and it's like affordable housing. But the rentals aren't going to be quote unquote, whatever you want to call it, workforce housing. They're going to be regular rentals.
They're going to be, yeah. What the requirement is that it's long-term housing, not short-term housing, and that's what you have to do in order to get the density that you asked for. So it's not. So that was this project. Each project's a little different. Like for example, well, we'll get into that when we go to the next project. But this will be long-term rental apartments.
And you're going to become a landlord? Well, you're a landlord anyway. I mean, with all the retail,
Yeah.
but so now you're
I think
a residential landlord.
No,
or how does that work?
I think what we'll do with one of the things that one of the reasons why we weren't in the apartment business right away, along with the commercial business, because we don't have a management company that does apartments, and that's a whole skill,
Right.
whole different animal. And so, like the apartment complex that's behind TJ Maxx, we brought someone in to do that. We're going to probably do the same thing here. We'll bring an expert in that will do it, that will manage it, that will run it, etc. So, we may still be part of it, but we're going to bring someone in it that's all they do, so it's done correctly. Because we don't really want to get into that side of the business.
Okay, so the berm, as you're going up, you go past the Rotary by Market Basket,
Yep.
and it's just a little ways up, I guess.
Yep.
I'd best describe it, right? A couple hundred yards,
Well,
maybe 300 or 400 yards.
The best way to think of it is, the project that the state's trying to do, those affordable housing. The state land, the state land when those condos are kind of boarded up. So if you're going on the north-south road,
The yellow ones.
the
Oh,
yellow ones,
Yeah.
that property's first,
Right.
and then it's this property. So you go to the Rotary, right?
Right, yeah.
Where you would get onto Common Court and
Yeah.
Settlers Green Drive, where the public, that public area where they use the Rotary,
Yeah,
that
that one.
public Rotary that
Right.
goes onto Common Court.
Yeah.
If you go straight on the north-south road, you have the state land, and then you have this piece of property. So it's pretty close.
Okay. And then, but the planning board was concerned that you could just see it.
You could see it, right? Okay.
So how you see what? I mean, see the roofs or the what?
Well, I think that it doesn't say that, like in the requirements, it doesn't say you can't see it from the north-south road. But I think that was the issue. Like if we have this beautiful north-south road, we're trying to keep it pristine, although we just put a Tractor Supply on the north-south road. But at some point, like after the Rotary,
Right.
I think the idea is, look, it needs to be beautiful. We just spent all this money on the rent. We get that, and we want that too.
Right.
Right. So so that's a no-brainer to us. So when they said, well, what's the view from the north-south road to the condos, we said, look, let us study it. And that's why we didn't ask for an approval the last time. So we have studied it, and we are going to put a berm, and we are going to tree it so that all you see in the car is maybe just the roof passing by, not the building per se. And then over time, it'll get thicker and thicker and thicker. So I think we've addressed their concern. I think we heard loud and clear that they wanted some kind of coverage so that when you're driving in the car, these townhouses aren't in your face. And the example someone gave was one of the hotels that is like right on Route 16.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was the worry. When you have that in your mind, you're saying, oh my God, this is much different. We're 100 feet back. There's a buffer between the north-south road. There's a berm, there's trees. So, and you're in a car at a much lower elevation. So from the start, you're not going to be looking into someone's window.
Right.
But you may see at the top or over the roof.
Now, they just passed the 250-foot overlay on the north-south road. You know that?
Yep.
So that doesn't affect you, or would it affect you? Would it have affected you if it hadn't gone into effect?
If we weren't in front of the board already,
Right.
and let's say we come in next week,
Right.
then it would affect
Okay,
us.
so-
But since we've been there for 2 years,
Right.
whenever we file, that's kind of the guidelines we're under, was at that time when you're in. Because, I mean, you could do that with anything, right? If you didn't like something.
Right.
You could change it like the following month, and then, so the answer is, that does not affect us. But we already have 100 foot that we agreed to up front.
Okay, and then, so you have the berm situation. You said you've been at it for 2 years.
Yeah.
When would you start? Are you going to this is Thursday, actually.
Tonight.
So you're going for that.
Yeah,
and
we're going for that
It seems like
tonight.
you're going to get final then.
Well, we hope so. We hope we get final. We think we addressed. They had two concerns. I think one was a snowmobile concern, which we think we addressed. One was the berm, and then it was timing on like when what building.
So
gets
there's
built.
if you get final approval, when do you break ground?
I think this summer.
Really?
Yeah, I think we'll start this summer.
And then next to you were the yellow condos, the old yellow condos. That's not your property. That's the old bypass corridor property.
The state.
I mean, it gets kind of tight in there, so it's hard to really understand it. I mean, I think people who drive by kind of picture it. But that's where New Hampshire Housing, right? And they want to put in like 100 units.
More than 100. I think it's
140?
60 or 80 or something.
And there's enough room there?
Well, what they want to do, which is, they had two pieces of land, if you remember. Like one was behind, and this one here, then one was on the opposite side. If you go up Pudding Pond Road, at the top of Pudding Pond Road, they had another piece of property. And I think they went to the zoning board and got all this approved, saying, look, we're not going to build on this, but we want more on this.
Yeah.
And so the answer is yes, because they're going to allow them to build two big buildings with a lot of units in it. And so they'll be able to get more density that way.
Where's the entrance going to, I mean, this isn't your project, but where's the entrance for that?
I think probably, I mean, it may change a little bit, but probably kind of where the entrance is now for those condos, and then maybe there'll be a road going to the apartments, and the apartments will sit a little closer to the north-south road, and they're going to be pretty tall, at least I think 4 stories, right? 3.5 to 4
like
stories.
Saco
They
Woods.
looked big.
But that's they're going to empty on your road, isn't that? I mean, that's part of your road.
They're going to empty on that private road of Settlers Green that I have to plow. Yes.
But the town accepted that part, didn't they?
They did.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know if they're going to let me put an arrow that they can't go right. They can only go left.
There we go. Right. Just say this is not town plowed road.
This is not town plowed road.
Don't plow it for a winter.
That's what I'm going to do.
That's easy. Mary Seavey was the one who said, well, that's where I go to whatever. Let her get her snow machine out and go on it.
Right. That's right. Don't plow it for one season. Oh my God. So that's right. So that's where that's going to be.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the next one, Rob, please. Okay. This one is apartments in back of Chipotle, right?
Correct. So, everyone talks about workforce housing, and it's really hard to build workforce housing with the zoning that exists in North Conway, with what it costs you, even to build little units, small, big, doesn't matter, and then what the rent is for affordable for work. It's all kind of connected, right? You can't do it, because if you could, everyone would be doing it. And so we kind of think we can do a small development behind a property we already own, where there's already sewer, there's already a parking lot, there's already lights, there's already, all the site work is done. We did it on the front piece, so it gives us no land cost, so that we think we can do these little units, and we can't do a lot of them, like 10, but it would be the description of workforce housing. Small little units would make them really cute at really cheap prices, below market prices.
Where does that back up to?
It backs up to
because the Chipotle is
the Dairy Queen. There's a motel
right
next to us. What's the next motel after Chipotle and after Dairy Queen?
Is that Mount Washington Valley? What's that one called?
I think so. It used to be Miss
Lodge.
Brazel's.
Yeah,
and then,
Joan Brazel's.
Joan Brazel's. She has a couple buildings in the back that this kind of backs up to.
What's the building to the bottom of the screen? Do you know?
That is the hearing aid, the motel person that owns Granite.
That's New Hampshire, the nursing.
The nursing aid and the hearing aid facility.
Okay, so the green part is where the units would go.
That's where the units would go. That would be behind Chipotle and behind Aspen Dental at the end of the parking lot.
Okay, and what's to the right of the green part, where the building is?
Nothing really. That's kind of some land that goes with the nursing facility in the front.
All right, so you know that they passed, I think it was Article 25 actually, where they passed that revitalization thing, where it's going to give developers a property tax break, right? As a developer, is that significant?
Not really. It's about density more than anything. Because land is so expensive. Like how much do you think 1 acre on Route 16 is today? If you were to buy, if 1 acre came up on Route 16, what do you think it would cost?
$1 million.
$1 million. So think about that.
Yeah.
2 acres is $2 million. So try to make that math work. So that's why you're seeing hotels. That's why you're seeing, retail. That's what I mean. That's all that can afford it. So land is so expensive. You have to find something that's not as expensive, and then you have to get the density up so that you can try to build enough units to offset the cost of construction and the cost of land. And that's a magical number. And that's why I think, when you look at some of the affordable housing, it's subsidized grants,
Right.
it's low, it's low financing stuff.
Yeah.
It's not typically a private developer without getting assistance. It's really hard to do it. So we kind of looked at that and said, okay, well, what can we do to help, right? So we're trying to do this workforce housing thing, this 10 units. Now, we've been asked to hold off on that a little bit because of some master planning things.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're going to address that tonight. I think we're going to pull that back and then come to that when they want us to come back.
Right.
So we're going to be doing that. And the other project that is behind TJ Maxx.
Yeah,
which is
but
the big
before we get to
apartments.
that,
Yeah.
you just said that they're going to, the planning board wants you to hold off for whatever reason, right? About putting residential and commercial areas.
Yes.
So do you think that has anything to do with the plan that Ashok has proposed for a red jacket? Did you see that?
I saw it for the first time today.
With the housing units on that lawn?
On the lawn.
What do you think of that?
I guess, it's a tough one because I've been coming up here, I'm sure people have been coming here a lot longer than I have, but I've been coming up since I was in high school. I bought the original property in 1985 or something like that, before we developed. And so I remember the red jacket as this amazing landscape, right?
Iconic.
It's kind of iconic, right? So, from that point of view, I would say, wow, that's going to be different, but things are happening, things are changing. But the property was for sale. The zoning allows it.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do? Now, they've had a couple years to maybe address that problem because they had the fire. Someone didn't own it. And someone could have said, well, maybe we should look at this a little differently now. But now someone bought it. They're in front of the planning board, and they have a right to do what's allowed. So do I love it? I don't know. I haven't studied it enough. I don't like the idea of it.
Yeah.
But what if it was me that bought it? I
Yeah.
would be saying, I'm entitled to that. Right? I bought it. That's how I bought it. I was envisioning using this land, and no one told me I couldn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the sale.
Yeah.
And so, don't get mad at me because, that we didn't look into the future and say we should do something with this land so no one can do that. So it's a tough one.
I'm not sure what the town ever could do with that. It just happens to be
Could you make it a
beautiful-
historical, significant site? Could you? A lot of things you could have maybe thought about. Maybe nothing. But so to answer your question really is, I need to see it a little bit more because I don't really understand exactly what they're doing. Maybe they're doing a beautiful job. I think the problem is that everyone, in their mind when they think of North Conway, when they think of that iconic piece of property, they think of the roaming fields, and it just feels like you're back in time.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's, as we say, it's a good one because, you get this, everybody wants housing on one side and, you don't want it quite right there because it's such a beautiful lawn going up there. I have to admit, I had heard that Ashok Patel was going to do some housing and I figured, he's got enough land, it'll be around the sides and the back. It was a little shocker.
Yeah, maybe.
To see right in front.
I think, they're on the planning board tonight, so we'll hear. We'll hear.
The planning board is. That'll be a good one because.
They're almost in a no-win situation.
The planning board. Yeah.
When these things come up, and
Right.
they don't make the rules,
right?
They have to enforce the rules, but here's the rules. And that's why I think the whole master plan thing has been good. Whether you like some of the things or don't like other things, at least they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that's the main thing. And then when you think about something, and maybe it's not perfect, so then you'll change what's not perfect eventually. So I think the master plan process is critical, and it was overdue for North Conway. Yeah. And I think they're doing a good job. And if something comes up that isn't right, I think that they have good common sense that, okay, well, we can't approve that, but maybe you can go somewhere else to talk about that to see if you get it approved.
Yeah.
So I think they're forward thinking now, which is good.
And you can't anticipate that. That nobody would in a million years would ever guess that.
You always say we should have done this after the fact.
Yeah.
And
it's like the snowflake in Jackson. I don't know if you know that property, but when that
A little
was
bit.
proposed like 10, 15 years ago, it's like, oh my God. Well, it was for sale for years.
And no one thought
no
about
one, no one bought it, you know?
That's what happens in everything you do,
Yeah.
even in business, right? You,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, something comes up and you say, why didn't I think about that
Yeah.
before?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
just
Okay, let's go to
happens.
the last one, Rob. And this is the big one.
Yeah.
Okay, so this isn't, you know, it depends on what level of old timer you are. For me, it's like the back of the old drive-in property. There was called Yankee Settlement or Settle or something that was proposed for retirement housing like 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's your property. And there's actually to the right is Route 16. And you can see Northway Plaza with TJ Maxx, right?
That's right.
And there's the entrance there. And then this goes all the way back, and on the left is the river.
That's
so where are you with that?
I think that we're permitted. Right? We have all our approvals. Our
From the town.
Approvals from the town and the DOT. So both highway, we got our driveway permit, we got the town approvals. And so this is a good example of timing because of construction cost and interest rates. You know, we're kind of trying to play that game as much as we can to time it a little bit better because of interest rates peaking up and financing on a project like this, because it's such a big project and it's apartments, you know, it's a different type of financing. We're trying to see what happens over the next couple months. We want to do it this year. We want to start it this year. The only thing that's holding us back is construction costs and interest rates. And we're hoping, we keep repricing things. Things are coming down a little bit construction-wise in some categories, like lumber, for example. So prices are getting a little better. So we're hoping to time it a little bit. And by the summer or the end of the summer, our goal is to start. That's our goal.
And
that could change, but that's what our hope is.
And so which is a bigger factor, the interest rates or the materials? And certainly labor's not getting any less expensive, right?
It is not. You know, you know what you have to do in some of these projects that are this big, you almost have to bring a team in and you house them and you keep them here, because the problem is when you're talking to regional or local contractors that can handle a job this size, you know, they're coming from somewhere and they're bringing a whole crew here, and then they got to put them in a hotel, and then they have to stay here for a year.
Right.
And when you add all those expenses up, it's like, no way, you know.
Right.
It gets really, really costly.
So does that mean you build it in increments, or you just do the whole thing?
I think you know, you have to build a certain amount for the math to make sense,
Right.
right? For the numbers to kind of, because one of the things on this project in particular,
Could you bring
when-
that back
when you
up,
showed it,
Rob, for a sec?
is look at how the roads. If there is, I think it's almost, is it 3,000 or 4,000 feet of roads? So and you can't build like one of the roads. You got to build
Right.
all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're building all those roads first, right? So all that infrastructure, that's the huge part of this deal, which I said from day one, and that's why we needed density. There is so much money in the roads, the infrastructure, the drainage, the sewerage, the curbing, and all of the public things we want to do with this, that you have to build X amount of units just to get it going.
Right.
And so we're going to see where that goes. So your question was, is interest rates more important or construction costs? They kind of both are, but if you get a break on one, then you can go.
Okay.
So whatever one kind of breaks first, I think will make us go one way or the other.
And how much of an interest, I mean, you know, everybody knows this about the Fed, and everybody's watching where they're going to lower the rates.
Yeah.
And the Consumer Reports thing came out this morning, and it wasn't quite
very good.
So you go, oh my God, you know, I wish the inflation would go down, because if the interest rates don't go down, they may not go down this year. I mean, that's what people are saying now. Like, how
Right.
much would it make a difference for you? Is it a quarter point, half a point?
I think a quarter point makes a difference.
Really?
That's because it's so big. It's so much money. It's not 10 million. It's like 100 million.
For that project?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
$100 million.
It's a lot of money.
Wow.
Right?
Hey, can you put it back up for 1 second, Rob? So explain what they are. Explain it if you don't mind. The blue and the orange over
so
there.
the blue, it's the orange are townhouses. So the orange will be for sale townhouses, right?
All right.
But that will be like at the end. That won't happen right away.
Okay.
Because all the roads, the infrastructure, the apartments have to be built first. So we'll do that at the end. And you know, we just did that because we had a little extra sliver of land, and we thought, okay, if this is really successful and it becomes a really successful community, that maybe that would be interesting for some people to tie into the clubhouse and some of the amenities.
Right, but those ones, you're talking about the orange ones on the left.
Yes.
But those are by the river, which
They
to
are.
me are like primo.
They should be.
Yeah.
We hope.
Okay.
If we do them right.
Okay, then all the blue ones.
And all the blue ones are the apartments.
So they're all going to be apartments.
All going to be all long term, and
how many?
There's 228, I think
Wow.
it is. All long term rental apartments, and one of the things we agreed to, there was a certain amount of, again, we go back to that language, workforce housing,
Right.
and that really relates to size, right?
Right.
And it has to be between, I think it's 400 or 300 square feet, and let's just say 600. There's a size. I could be off on the exact size. And that's considered workforce housing if that apartment is that small. Well, you're only required to do like 20%. I think we did 40%. So we're not calling it a workforce housing project, but 40% of these units fall in the category how the town describes workforce housing,
And that
they're
gives you what?
long-term rental.
And by doing that,
Smaller
does what?
units at less of a cost.
Right, but what does that do? Why do you need to be required to do that many? Why?
They require you to do at least 20%.
Who's they?
The ZBA to get any zoning relief and to get more density.
more density. Got it.
There's a requirement that you have to do X amount workforce housing. Well, we doubled or tripled that. We said, look, we'll do more than that so that we can kind of contribute to that workforce housing pool.
Now, when the feds are involved with the subsidized housing, like the Investa project down at the Tech Village, it's like 80% of the average median income and all that. Are you required to follow that?
No.
So
'cause
what
it's
does
all
that mean?
private.
When they say workforce housing, what do you say? Okay, the size, is that determines
Size.
what?
It's
Okay.
mostly size, and because it's smaller, you can charge less. It doesn't cost you as much to build.
Right.
So the idea is that same apartment, let's just say it was $1,000 if it was bigger, will be $700 or $600.
Do you think they could be that inexpensive?
I think they can be less expensive than anything else that's in North Conway today that's new. That's what I think.
And you think
and
200?
that's what the goal is.
Yeah, and 200's. I mean, like, do you have any idea how many apartments are around? I mean, do you think 200 makes a dent, or is that?
Well, I mean, think about it for a second. I think that it definitely makes a dent, along with the other things that are happening.
Right.
When you add them all together, I mean, every week it seems like there's a couple popping up here
Yeah.
or 10 over here, right? So eventually, when you add them all up, it's going to make a difference, and they're all going to be in a different category. If this thing really goes forward on the old condo development off the North-South Road, the one we were talking about with the
Right.
state, that's going to be affordable, right?
Right.
That's a pretty big project, 150 plus units, right? Then you have ours, which is 200 units. And then you have 10 over here or 20 over there. When you add them all up, that's a lot for apartments. So,
And they're going to have. So maybe we shouldn't close the school after all, huh?
right. There you go.
Yeah, it's going
right?
to take years. Okay, Rob, we went through a lot, and I
Okay,
appreciate
good.
it. And it's always good to see you.
You too.
And good luck tonight at the planning board.
Thank
They're
you.
tough.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.